Hello, welcome back to another soliloquy from Dungeons and Decisions. Uh, the first video I made was the Wizard's Choice, where we followed a wizard and a warrior fighting some goblins and then rescuing a young woman named Siba before searching a ruined castle to find her family and potentially find some treasure along the way. The next video, the previous one, we followed a rogue named Rooster as he gathered information in Ring City to potentially set off on an adventure to make money so that he could set both himself and his sister free from the debt of some, I suppose, nefarious gangsters. Well, this time we're going to be reading from, where was it? Ranger's Choice. All right, so don't know anything about this one. The other two I had played many years ago, so I kind of had an idea about them. This one I have never touched at all. Also, if I sound different, I don't know how this is going to sound until I edit it, but I'm actually awake for once while doing one of these videos, so I may have a little more energy than I'm used to putting into these. I know my voice doesn't really have the same texture that it normally would for reading, for bed. I will try to calm myself down and read at a pace that maybe suits the other content that I've created on here. But yeah, I'm a little more alert, and in the middle of the day just thought I'd take this opportunity while I was alone to make a recording. So with that being said, let's dive into the Ranger's Choice. Ranger's Choice, Chapter 1, by Hardy LaBelle and Sam Landstrom. It is almost dawn as you crouch, concealed in the rocky bluffs above a forest on the edge of a sea of black sand. The first rays of the sun crest the foothills at your back and cast shifting shadows on the dunes, creating the illusion of black ocean waves rolling in slow motion. A caravan of huge wagons is spread out below you in the forest on the edge of the vast desert. The wagons are an impressive sight, more like massive rolling vaults than an open sight. The wagons are an impressive sight, more like massive rolling vaults than an open-sided wagon. The wagons are an impressive sight, more like massive rolling vaults than the open-sided wagons that are common further north. The cabins are constructed of thick wood and festooned with watch lanterns like mobile fortresses. Judging by the heavy ruts leading out of the sandy waste, it's clear that the wagons cross the desert on sled-like runners. But since they've been parked, a dwarf with a pronounced limp seems to be in charge of converting them to roll on massive ironclad wheels using an ingenious system of replaceable struts. In hiding, you've observed the caravan for the past 2 days. Agents of the throne sent word that this caravan must reach Ring City safely and ordered rangers to escort it across the kingdom. Okay, that's cool to see that this story is actually set in the same universe as the wizard and the rogue. I'm pretty sure that the Demon's Choice is also set in this universe with Ring City, but doesn't spend much time there. So I'm gonna have to look over. I don't remember if these were all the same writers or if there's at least one shared writer. But I do find it fascinating that they're all writing from the same universe. That's really cool. To continue. The Council of the Grove chose to send you, their youngest member. You are Arash Azar, second son of the noble house of Azar, and newly sworn to the Order of Rangers of Valtanar. A grim smile tugs at the corner of your mouth as you recall your mentor's teachings. When a job calls for brawn, choose send a warrior. When it calls for magic, send a wizard. When it must be done well, send a ranger. That aphorism would often precede lashes from a strap because you'd failed to meet his standards in some task or test. Ranger Kobek's methods were harsh. He tolerated nothing less than perfection. But they turned you into the capable ranger you are today. Nearby, a paddock of Wahashas are chewing at stacks of hay. These lumbering pack beasts pull the wagons. The huge, hairy creatures are a rare sight this far north. They're native to the desert, where packs of them roam wild across the sand. These are certainly all male, as they appear to be too large to be female. If so, you surmise that they must have been castrated to make them docile enough for this type of labor. You spot 2 guards lounging on the bales of hay, and you shake your head. The men-at-arms guarding the caravan are loud, undisciplined, and sloppy. Over the past 2 days, you've snuck into the camp several times, seeking to test their awareness and readiness. Naturally, they failed. You've dined well on stolen provisions from their stores, while the guards remained puzzled by this missing food. Lacking explanation, they blamed each other and thieving animals. You've also placed several snares and deadfalls in the shrubbery surrounding the camp. These could serve to ward off natural predators, should any become curious. But they're also placed to cut off natural avenues of approach. If intruders come near, you will be alerted as they get caught up in the traps. Once ensnared, you'll only need a second to sight them with your bow. Your eyes drift over the curved black wood of your weapon. The black bow is the signature of the Rangers, hewn from the branches of a spirit oak at the heart of the forest and bent into shape by the magic of druids. Trapped intruders don't stand a chance and would likely be dead before they knew where the bow fire was coming from. You glance back at the rising sun. You were ordered to meet the caravan on this day, but Ranger Kobek drilled a simple mantra into your head 1,000 times. Early is on time. On time is late. Late is unacceptable. As the sun clears the horizon, you decide it's time to reveal yourself. Making a strong first impression is important. But how, you wonder? You've toyed with 2 strategies for approaching the caravan. You could evade the lazy sentries and just walk into camp, or you could coax them to come to you by revealing yourself atop a rock against the morning sky. Either way, it's time to make your move. Oh man, but we gotta make a good first impression. And revealing yourself just feels like, that's so Batman AF, just like against the setting sun and your shadow pops up on top of the rock. How can I not pick that one? Okay, so let's actually consider sneaking into the camp. Let's think about the pros and cons of this. I suppose I can see that being pretty impactful, that everyone in the camp feels safe, the guards are out on the outer post, and then you just come strolling in, eating one of their apples, like pretending you're one of the guys before, I don't know what you're supposed to do there, beat people up and kill someone, I don't know. But I can see that being pretty impactful. However, I don't know, just that shadow with the sun, like the sunset behind you and casting that dark silhouette. I can't say no to that. Can't say no to that. All right, we're going to say reveal yourself. You stand tall up on a tall boulder, silhouetted against the morning sky. It only takes a few moments for the guards to spot you. Once they do, they cluster in a group and advance on your position. The guards are armed with spears and scimitars, and they wear only loose-fitting robes. Their gear makes sense. The black desert is too hot for full body armor, and the slashing edges of their curved swords are ideal for unarmored enemies. Despite their Southland garb and weapons, these light-skinned men are obviously Northlanders. The burly man in the lead is clearly the captain. As they approach, he gestures at you with his spear. Come down here and surrender your weapons. You remain motionless as you answer. The Council of the Grove sent me with instructions to see this caravan safely to Ring City. The captain grits his teeth. I don't care who you are. Lay down your arms or we'll come up there and take them from you. Captain, you begin. I don't think you understand. You're not in control here. You languidly draw an arrow from your quiver on your back and knock it in your black bow. The dwarf has been observing the entire scene. He limps quickly towards the cluster of soldiers, waving his arms. Stop! He shouts. The guards half turn as he approaches. Captain Falk! He pants, while catching his breath. It's best you don't antagonize this man. Just call me Captain, dwarf, he says. And I am not concerned with this man, the captain says, spitting in the dirt. We could be up those rocks in the blink of an eye. He gestures at you with his chin. He might get off one arrow, but we drag him down for sure. You draw and release your arrow in one smooth motion. The shaft buries itself directly at the feet of the guard to the captain's left. You quickly draw and fire again, burying a second arrow at the feet of the guard on the right. By the time they register what happened, you have a third arrow knocked and ready to fire. The captain's face turns red in fury. Bah! So you can hit the dirt! What does that prove? You eye him coolly. My master taught me a lesson long ago, Captain. You say, just loudly enough to carry down to the captain. You draw the bowstring back again and aim. The dwarf yells, No! But it's too late. There is a deep thrumming sound as you release the arrow, followed by a loud The captain soon realizes that he is not shot. Instead, your arrow has split the shaft of his spear. He drops his splintered weapon in surprise and stares at you with his eyes wide. As I was saying, only a fool would rush a knocked arrow. I trust you have now learned that lesson as well. Apparently too rattled to speak, the captain merely nods. That was way better than walking into the camp, right? Like, come on. Yeah, that was the right choice. Continue. Morale increases by 1. Oh, I just noticed that there's a different currency or whatever, a measure up here. Favor? I wonder what favor is. Favor 8. And I noticed no gold, so we won't need to buy things. Maybe we're gonna just steal what we need. Interesting. Okay. You leap down the rocks to join the men below. When you land, the dwarf appears to size you up as he looks at you from head to toe. So, he begins, stroking his mustache. The Storm Throne has sent us a ranger to escort us across the kingdom. And by the look of you, still in the first flush of youth. His comment stings a little. It's true that you have only recently been ordained as a member of the order, but you are a full brother. You shrug. And a job must be done well. The dwarf scowls and interrupts. Send a ranger. Yes, I have heard that old saw many times before, but Valtanar is in turmoil. The fiefdoms are locked in a civil war. One bow won't be enough to protect the entire caravan. I will do more than shoot, you answer, eyeing the 3 guards. I will scout and help raise the security of the entire caravan, and we will start by setting a better perimeter watch. The captain bristles at your words. We saw you coming. We had plenty of time to react. You shake your head. No, Captain. The first time you or any of your men saw me was when I revealed myself on the rocks. However, I have been in your camp many times over the last few nights. The captain snorts in disbelief. Impossible. Quickly, you pull a small bottle from your cloak. Personally, I do not care for this stuff. The captain's eyes widen, and then his face darkens. You stole that from me. I was going to give it to anyone who even came close to finding me. But since no one ever did, you may as well have it back. You toss the bottle to the captain, who catches it deftly. Ah, that's where the Hydra went, says the dwarf, as he gives the captain a wry smile. You promised to share it with me when the wheels got switched. I thought you were keeping it for yourself. The captain inspects the etchings on the whiskey bottle, as though trying to determine if this was his bottle of Hydra that went missing. Soon, the guards, the dwarf, and even the captain fall silent as they stare at you. You begin to stride towards the wagons in the distance. We will review the guard postings and sightlines as soon as we reach camp. Bro. Alright, this dude is that dude. This dude's Batman. Alright. As you approach the caravan, the sour expressions from the guards tell you that your lesson hit home. There will be resentment, but their eyes show something else. A touch of fear. That's good. Yeah, I was about to say that's good. That's where we want them. Ranger Kobek used to say, fear can grow into respect, but disdain leads only to conflict. And he was quick to teach fear to anyone who dared to not show him the proper respect. The captain hurries to match you stride for stride. When we arrive at the camp, he pants, slightly winded by your pace, I must announce you to the master. Soon, you see a tall figure with the frame of a man draped in voluminous robes of high quality. The figure is now addressing the dwarf, but his hood. Soon, you see a tall figure with the frame of a man dressed in voluminous robes of high quality. The figure is now addressing the dwarf, but his hood is up, keeping the face concealed from the morning sun. It looks like you won't have to, you say, nodding at the tall figure. The captain swallows hard and glances at you nervously. If the master finds out what happened. You meet his eyes. I have no intention of telling him, as long as I can count on your prompt attention to my commands. He glances back at the gaggle of guards behind you and looks back at you. As you say, Ranger. You stride into the clearing, and the tall figure turns to watch as you approach. His movements are effortless, displaying an almost liquid grace. His face, however, remains in shadow. The guard captain jogs forward and drops to one knee. Master Vercel, he begins. The figure in the robe raises a single hand. Silken gloves cover the long, slender fingers as he indicates for silence. Then a voice hisses out of the blackness of the hood. What happened, Captain? You step forward, unslinging your black bow and resting one end on the ground in front of you. A test, Master Vercel. Your captain and I wanted to assess the readiness of your guards. The hooded figure is extremely tall. Most tall men would have to step up on a stool to look the wearer in the face. The dark space inside the hood remains on you for a moment. And what did you determine, Ranger? You glance back at the man in arms. Your men are loyal and brave, but we can make some changes to help ensure your safety. The robes seem to shake slightly, and you realize the figure under the hood might be laughing. Their loyalty was never an issue, Ranger, and I am quite capable of. Vercel turns away and glides toward a wagon that you assume to be his before continuing. Defending myself. Your instincts tell you this is true. Vercel exudes an otherworldly sense of power. Perhaps a wizard? If not to ensure your safety, then why do you need so many guards? Why did the Storm Throne send me to you? Vercel gestures at the caravan. Now that you have finished showing off, I will tell you. Your cheeks flush at his jibe as he sweeps across the rock-strewn ground as his cloak billows. Though you watch carefully, you cannot discern if Vercel is walking or simply floating over the ground. These wagons all belong to me, Vercel says, one languid hand gesturing as you walk. Impressive feats of engineering, you say aloud. Vercel nods. I believe you have met the genius that designed them. The familiar one-legged dwarf bows deeply. Vercel nods in response. Ranger, this is Grimbold Gunderhog, a dwarven inventor from the Dragonfang Mountains. He is my property. You watch the dwarf, noting the shifting play of emotions across his face at the introduction. You sense pride, anger, and humiliation before he ultimately shakes his head ever so slightly and spits on the rocky ground. Your property, you repeat, making no attempt to mask your contempt for the word. Did I misspeak? Asked Vercel, clearly challenging you. Slavery is an affront to the twins, you say. All living things deserve freedom. Ah, Vercel says. Of course, as a ranger, you subscribe to the teachings of your nature gods. Yet, do the twins not believe in natural order? A drone bee serves his queen. The Omega Wolf is the last to eat. Naturally, Grimbold here knows his place. The wilderness is no different than the city or my caravan. There is no freedom, only roles to play. You feel your blood rising up at his sacrilege. Instinctively, your hands go to the hilts of your swords. The grip on your long swords is worn smooth from years of training, but the ornate handle of the wicked, curved short sword on which you now rest your left hand is another matter. It looks as new today as it did when it was forged. Time and wear have no effect on it, and dust and rust will not cling to it. The sword is named Althaiban, which means the serpent in the southern tongue. It is a family heirloom dating back to the questing band who first discovered the Storm Throne and unlocked its secrets. The blade is enchanted and excretes a terrible venom. One nick from Althaiban will crumple this wizard. Before you speak, the dwarf says, I have met the ranger, a bit of a showman, yet I expect he's capable. He smiles dryly at you, but his eyes hold a warning. You take a deep breath and take a moment to center your mind. The dwarf was wise to interrupt. Your argument with this ignorant wizard is a waste of your breath. You nod toward the line of wagons. These are impressive work. I've never seen their like. The dwarf glances around at the caravan and hooks his thumbs on his belt. The master commanded me to devise a solution to carry our cargo. As the master commands, I obey, he says as he bows low, his mechanical hip joint creaking with the motion. Vercel acknowledges his bow with a slight nod, and then motions for you to follow. Come, Ranger. I'll show you our precious cargo. My name is Arash Azar, second son of the noble house of Azar, you say. Vercel waves at you dismissively. Not in this caravan. As I said, we all have roles to play. You will address me as master, and I will call you whatever I choose. Despite yourself, you smile. This man's arrogance is almost amusing. Two wagons sit at the center of the semicircle, hitched together end to end by a system of forged iron locks. Both appear to be constructed from the same light-colored wood as the rest of the caravan, but are heavily reinforced with metal studs. A hinged connector links the front vehicle to the back. There is only one entrance visible, a reinforced door set into the side of the front vehicle and protected by armed guards. It's interesting. Okay. Huh. This almost sounds like a train, but it's on wheels on the land. Airport store. Okay. Vercel gestures towards the wagons. This is why you are here, young ranger. The contents must be protected at all costs and delivered to Ring City. Through a window, you catch a flicker of movement in the rear armored wagon. As you focus, you realize that you are looking at a reflection of a blonde elven maiden shining off a mirror inside the wagon. Vercel seems unaware that you see her. Of course, it's difficult to tell with the cowl of his robes hiding his face. What's inside? You ask, turning away from the window. Vercel shakes his head. That is not important, he replies. You merely need to understand that their contents are vital to the Storm Throne, and your job is to ensure their safety until we arrive. The elven girl remains out of sight as you both walk past. You consider pushing back. After all, knowing what you are protecting is an important part of your responsibilities. But the wizard turns away and gestures to the assembled camp. Prepare your defenses, Ranger. We leave before noon tomorrow. You watch the slaves scurrying to finish fitting the wagons with wheels and realize that no one is watching you. There is an opportunity for you to do some scouting. You could try and find the dwarf and try to get some information about the cargo. But what about the elven girl? There are guards stationed at the wagon, but you feel you could sneak around them and learn more, if not speak to her. Either way, more information about this caravan would be helpful to your mission. What do you do? I feel like we're gonna push our bounds a little bit because, we're rangers that believe in everyone being free, and so we don't, even if we did find his arrogance amusing, and honestly, I think Vercel is not one to mess around with. But that being said, I'm not going to try to ask for information. I'm going to just see if I can reach the girl myself, get that information directly. Also, considering that I know that Demon's Choice is in the same universe as this, I've been voicing Vercel, considering how tall he is, with the belief that he's probably some sort of demon or snake man under that robe. But we'll see if my guess is correct. I'm going to try to reach the girl. The achievement unlocked, Nosy. People say it's a bad thing, but you're just trying to stay informed. Exactly. It's not a bad thing. I just need to get the information directly. I don't know how much we can trust the dwarf to be honest with us, because he's still scared of his master. Okay, morale increases by 1. You slip away from the bustle of the preparations and make your way back towards the central double wagon. Now that you can get closer, you're struck by the sheer size and mass of the vehicle. It looks like a rolling fortress. We've used that analogy like 3 times, I think now. I would have liked it to be framed differently. give us more information. You watch the door for a time, but 2 guards remain stationed there. There is no way past them without first drawing their attention away, so you make your way round to the backside of the wagon. The few windows are now tightly shut, preventing any view of the interior. You pause, considering how best to create a distraction, when you hear the sound of Russell approaching. You duck into the underbrush and camouflage yourself, waiting to see what unfolds. The wizard rounds the corner, moving in his strange gliding gait. He stops by the side of the wagon and slowly scans the surroundings to check if he is alone. Seeing no one, Russell depresses a secret lever and opens a hidden panel on the side of the wagon. He enters and quickly shuts the panel. Mostly. You peer inside the slight opening in the panel and scan the area. The wagon is obviously divided into sections, as this portion is walled off. In the center of the room is a strange metal device that is draped with wires and coils. It is connected to what appears to be a barrel-shaped brass container of some sort, with a hose attached. The wizard withdraws the hose from the storage compartment and slides the nozzle up under his robes. Okay. Then there is a low-pitched humming sound, and the machine in the cabin begins to throb. The hair on the back of your neck and arms begins to rise. Whatever the wizard is doing, it seems to be creating a powerful charge. You feel an increasing sense of building pressure until Russell releases the hose from under his robes, and there is a bright white spark, much brighter than even the daylight around you. Then the pressure quickly dissipates, and the air returns to normal. A scrawled note on a torn piece of parchment on the other side of the room catches your attention. You can only make out a couple of words at the top, but it shakes your senses. Millicron's liberation, you read to yourself as you shudder. Your mind spins back to myths and legends of the civilizations that predate the kingdom of Ultanar. Millicron was a legendary figure from ages past who supposedly crossed through the veil and descended from the plane of the gods to the mortal realm. He was said to have many powerful tools in his possession, artifacts that are still spoken of to this day. You quickly regain focus as Russell starts to move away from the machine. You lower yourself deeper into cover as Russell emerges from the wagon, scans the area again, and closes the storage compartment and strides away. You slip out of the underbrush and rejoin the milling workers as they prepare the caravan to leave. Whatever Russell is, he is unlike any spellcaster you've ever encountered. This caravan holds many secrets. You only hope that you'll live long enough to uncover them all. Okay, they got me. They've got me interested. Especially Russell. I really like our main character, the ranger, but this wizard, yeah, I'm definitely interested in what's in that caravan. Like, what's with the elvish girl? What's with the hose going up the robes? Like, is he not even a body in there? Maybe I was wrong about it being a snake under the robe. Is he just like floating power? That's just, I don't know. Your mission to keep this caravan safe will be a challenge, so you set yourself to the task of supervising security. There are 12 guards and the same number of laborers. That's not a lot for a large caravan, particularly one with such valuable cargo. Certainly, Vercel does not lack resources. The wagons alone are masterworks. It's curious that all the guards and laborers are slaves. The guard uniforms cover the bottom of the neck, and so you do not notice the slave collars at first. But you catch glimpses of the metal when they bend down. All the guards are men, except one. She is an attractive redhead who glared at you when your gaze lingered just below her slave collar. Likely, you're the only free person in this caravan. However, most of the guards you have interacted with do not behave as slaves, which is to say, they do not seem meek or oppressed. You plan to ask about it, but you need to focus on the journey ahead. Okay, well, I would say Vercel specifically said that there is a hierarchy in his camp, that the people should know their place. And so while the guards would be slaves to him, they aren't slaves in their position because they have to maintain some authority over the other slave, the worker slaves, in order to keep them in line. So, yeah, I feel like that makes sense, that they don't behave as if they're oppressed, because surely he allows them certain freedom and certain authority to make some choices that the other slaves couldn't. But they also don't have full freedom, because they probably can't leave whenever they want. They can't say whatever they like to him. But they have more freedom maybe than the workers. Again, he's just everyone having their station and everyone knowing their place, as he seems to feel like that's the natural order of law of nature. All right. The wagons are scheduled to roll within an hour, and the captain seeks you out. "We're ready to ride," he says, dusting his hands. You look at the distribution of the guards over the wagons, noting their positions. "You've done well, Captain." "What about you?" he asks. "Where will you ride?" You shake your head. "I won't be on the wagons. I will be beside the caravan, watching our flanks and scouting ahead." The captain looks you up and down. "But you're on foot," he says. "You can't keep pace with wagons. Can you?" You nod once. "With the blessings of the twins, like the cougar, I shall move through the wild swiftly and out of sight." "The twins," he begins with a smirk, and then lets his sentence trail off and adopts a more serious expression. He nods at your black bow and wipes beads of sweat from his brow. "Blessings or not, I pity anyone who approaches without permission." Yeah, look at that, getting a little respect from Captain. All right, life increases by 1. Favor increases by 1. Okay, let's see what warrants this change. After an uneventful first day, the sun is rising on the south. I get it. Favor is probably our score with the twins. Like, that's a metric measuring our power level with our God. Okay. After an uneventful first day, the sun is rising on the second day on the trail. Daybreak streams over the peaks of the hills, streaking the clouds with a fiery orange glow. The black desert is far behind you now, as the terrain continues in a slow rise towards the mountain range known as the Southern Gate. The highest peaks loom ahead of you, still a day's march or more away. You're scouting ahead of the wagons when you catch a glimpse of a small herd of deer racing through the underbrush ahead. They're clearly spooked, and one of the bucks stops in the clearing and glances up at the sky before racing on to catch up with the other animals. That was a big male, and the herd itself was a good size. Only a predator would cause such commotion, something large. You turn to alert the guards on the wagons and spot the danger immediately. A large bat-winged shape is dropping out of the sky behind the caravan, masked by the glare of the morning sun. You scream, "Look out!" But it's too late. The black silhouette gets close enough to blot out the morning glare, and you can see that it's a wyvern, a distant cousin to the dragon. This specimen is a large female, likely pregnant. The animal has been the apex predator in these hills for a long, long time. Unlike dragons, the wyvern only has 2 legs. Her forelimbs stretch up into bat-like wings that arch up over her shoulders. Her wings are tipped by claws that could gut nearly any prey, especially if pounced upon from the air. However, the greatest dangers from the beast lies in her jaws and in the wicked barb at the end of her whip-like tail. The venom generated from those attacks will paralyze most and eventually stop the heart. The wyvern hisses as she drops out of the sky towards the last wagon in the train. This is the guard's wagon. It has a wooden parapet built into the roof. A guard with a crossbow stands within the parapet. However, when he sees the wyvern diving down at him, he panics and leaps from the wagon. Meanwhile, the slave driving the wagon squeals in terror and throws his hands up over his head in a futile attempt at self-preservation. The guard lands badly, catching one foot in the rocks along the side of the trail and tumbling helplessly into the gully beside the road as the monster drops out of the sky. As the wyvern swoops down, she narrowly misses the quaking slave, and her intended target becomes clear: the furry pack beast leading the caravan. The wyvern lands on the lead animal with a hissing snarl. Her claws sink into its flanks as her jaws clamp down around its neck. The Wahasha emits a yelp of pain as it writhes and thrashes. The second Wahasha in the tandem harness is braying and bucking wildly to get away from the wyvern, but the harness is too strong. Neither animal can run, but their efforts rock the wagon so hard that it nearly tips. The rest of the caravan is in chaos as well. The huge animals wrestle in the snarled leather fittings. Pack beasts on the other wagons panic as slaves and guards scatter. You spring into action, dashing clear of the tree line towards the wagons as you unsling your black bow. The wyvern sinks her jaws into the lead Wahasha's neck twice more, and you see the great animal's eyes roll up into its eye sockets. The toxin is working fast. Next, the wyvern sinks her claws into the beast's back and begins to beat her powerful wings. Whew. Okay, continue. You're impressed by the ferocity of the attack. The wyvern's dive hit her target perfectly. If the Wahasha had been walking unencumbered, the wyvern would be carrying him away right now. but Grimbold's harnesses are holding fast. What could have been a perfect snatch and grab has gone very wrong. This is bad, you think to yourself. The wyvern can't understand why she can't lift her prey into the air. She was already hungry. Now she's getting angry. As you run back among the wagons, you notice that a couple of guards are looking to each other, unsure of what to do in the face of the violent spectacle in front of them. "You two!" you shout. "Follow me! We've got to cut those harness straps." Both guards start to shuffle hesitantly towards you when the fortified door on the central wagon opens and Vercel appears. The hooded figure raises one hand, and both guards immediately stand up at rigid attention. Vercel then points at the foot of the steps leading up to his wagon and says, "You two will remain here." Both guards immediately move into position by the door, and you shake your head. "My safety is paramount," he continues, "as is the safety of this wagon. The rest," he gestures toward the ruckus unfolding at the end of the wagon train, "is now your responsibility." "Fools!" you exclaim as you turn your back on them and begin to sprint towards the fight. You round the end of the double wagon. You hear the sound of rapidly splintering wood and the panicked hoofbeats of Wahashas. Nearby, the female guard is on the ground trying to help one of the laborers back to his feet. The guard is distracted, so she can't see that huge chunks of the shattered Wahasha harness are about to rain down on her and the man, who has injured an ankle. You only have a moment. You could shout in hopes that the guard's reflexes are quick enough to protect her and the fallen laborer. Or you could dive and try to tackle her out of the way. What do you do? Well, I have other things to attend to in this matter. Everything is getting chaotic, and I can't do it all. I have to accept, as I learned in management, that some things just have to be delegated, no matter how much you hate that. You have to trust your team. So, I'm going to shout a warning, and hopefully the story recognizes what I mean is to shout a warning and keep running toward the Wahashas and the wyvern to set that Wahasha free so the wyvern can get out of here. I'm going to shout a warning. Morale increases by 1. You scream, "Look out!" as the mass of wood and iron hurtles through the air. The guard reacts to your warning, half turning as the debris tumbles to the ground. As she dodges, a chunk slams into her side and knocks her off her feet. The slave can only throw his hands up in helpless defense as the wreckage crashes down on top of him. The woman rolls to one side, moaning in pain. As you reach her, her eyes flutter open. "You saved me, Ranger," she says, brushing a strand of flame-red hair out of her eyes. She looks at the body of the slave and shakes her head. Despite the commotion, you're struck by her eyes, emerald green and highly expressive, but filled with a deep sadness. "I just wish we could have saved him, too." As you pull her back to standing, she groans and clutches at her side. She starts to speak. "Thank you. My name is..." But you don't have time for niceties. The wyvern is still a threat to the caravan. You're off and running before she can complete her sentence. Okay, thank goodness. I was thinking the same thing as I was reading those words. I didn't even want to go over to her. I was yelling so she can handle herself. I'm glad that she took what happened positively. I wonder if I would have tackled her, maybe she wouldn't have. But still, no time for your name. I've got to handle the wyvern. So I'm glad that we are on the same page there. Pun I don't know. You decide if the pun is intended. Continue. You move outward to get a clear view of the massive animals involved in the fray. The beast that was bitten has collapsed to the ground on his side. He's still alive, but its huge legs are raised stiffly in the air, quivering. The wyvern has begun to tug herself free of the straps of the wagon harness. She's clearly furious, hissing in rage as she eyes the other Wahasha still trapped in the remains of the wagon harness. 2 guards are standing nearby. One has a sword at the ready, the other is aiming a crossbow. You knock the crossbow as the guard pulls the trigger. The bolt whizzes past the wyvern. "Damn you, sand goblin!" he shouts, looking like he might unwisely try to hit you with the butt of his crossbow. "Fool, that will bring her attention to you," you say. "Your weapon will not pierce her scales." The other guard holding the sword glances at you. "It's trapped. We can kill it now." "Don't get any closer," you warn. "What's wrong, Ranger? Are you scared?" he says tauntingly. "You've got a bow in your hands, but you refuse to fight." He looks at the wyvern, still struggling with the leather bond tangled over her wings and legs. "She has missed her prey," you reply, eyeing the monster. "With luck, she will decide we're too much trouble to hunt and leave on her own." "Well, you might be too scared to do anything," the guard says, swiping his sword in the air for effect. "But this is my chance at freedom." With a yell, he rushes at the wyvern's back. Behind you, the other guard and a nearby laborer raise a cheer. "Don't!" you shout. But it's too late. The wyvern glances back over her shoulder, one yellow eye affixing the guard in her reptilian stare. As the man rushes in, her tail lashes out, snapping the tip like a whip, driving the envenomed barb into the guard's chest. A collective gasp goes up from the assembled onlookers as the wyvern turns to face the guard. The guard has turned back toward you as though attempting to flee. However, his muscles have already locked up, his body quivering, and his skin has turned pale. "I can't move," he gasps. His eyes bulge in fear as he sinks to his knees. Nothing can save the guard now. The wyvern's poison is so potent that even a tiny dose will stop the man's heart. The guard's mouth opens and shuts like a fish. He mouths, "Help me." The wyvern takes a step closer and hisses. Her jaws drip ropey strands of saliva. In one fluid motion, she lunges forward, seizing the guard in her claws as her wings begin to beat the air. As it rises, you can now hear the guard's plea, "Ranger." The twin gods Sath and Dira represent the duality of life, the predator and the prey, birth and death. You venerate the twins in all things. That is the way of the Ranger. You heft the black bow in your hands. You can deliver a killing shot. But do you target the wyvern or the guard? You have a deep respect for this magnificent animal. The beast will surely eat the man. Being devoured alive is a grisly death. But the wyvern is merely following her nature to hunt. You could end the man's suffering with a well-placed bow shot before the wyvern lands to feed. On the other hand, the wyvern has obviously established herself as a threat to you and the caravan. With one shot through her eye, you can end it. The creature is rising fast. You must decide. What do you do? Oh, this is wild. Are you serious right now? Oh. All right. So our options are kill the guard or shoot the wyvern, which they're suggesting would kill it. We went into this not wanting to kill the wyvern. We went into this wanting it to go away. We wanted to set it free. We told the guard. Oh my gosh. I don't want it to seem like I'm being petty. Like this is my choice. It's not like, this isn't like revenge, but we told the guard to stay away from the wyvern so that it can leave us alone. We didn't want the wyvern to draw his attention to the rest of us. The guard said, screw you, I'm gonna go hit something. So it became the meal that the wyvern took instead of the Wahasha that was strapped in to the harness. Because the wyvern's still hungry. And once it eats, it'll leave us alone. So we don't need to kill the wyvern, and it'll still eat him even if he's dead, because he just died. Like, she saw it running around. So she'll still eat him. And once she eats, she won't be a threat to us while we're in the area. And we're going to be traveling. We'll be leaving the area. I don't know what anyone that may be watching this feels about who should be shot, but I'm going to choose to mercy kill the guard. Favor increases by, and that's another thing. I'm also trying to play this by thinking of, I want to lean into how the character feels and their place and their worship of nature and their loyalty to their gods. So yeah, it makes sense not to try to punish the natural order of predator and prey. So yeah, I'm gonna shoot the guard. And she's pregnant too. There's no way I want to kill. Yeah, there's too much. Not only is she a magnificent creature, she's pregnant. You will not slay her. You see the terror in the guard's eye as the wyvern lifts him into the air. You draw and knock your arrow in one smooth motion. You release your arrow quickly, and the shot hits him directly in the eye, immediately ending his suffering. The wyvern screeches as it clears the crest of the hills and flaps away. The captain steps close to you, his face red and his mouth agape. You killed him! You turn and meet his eyes. You're wrong, Captain. He was already dead. I spared him a measure of agony. The captain stares at the sky where the wyvern vanished behind the hill. What are we supposed to do if that thing comes back? You glance in the direction that he is staring. It will take the wyvern hours to devour a meal that size. You begin to walk back towards the head of the caravan. It won't hunt again for at least a day. I just hope we ended up being enough trouble to persuade her to seek easier prey when her hunger stirs again. It takes Grimbold some time to repair the broken harness on the last wagon. While he works, you gather the guards to speak with them about the attack. You are concerned about their undisciplined reaction and use this time to reinforce proper positioning and protocol. As your angry lecture continues, you find yourself avoiding eye contact with the female guard. The Wahasha that was bitten slowly regains its mobility. Fortunately, the wyvern did not inject as much venom as you had feared. The hardy animal will be fine, but your temper remains white hot. As you stalk towards the central wagon, the heavily fortified door opens and Vercel emerges. The captain jogs over to your side and bows his head in deference to the wizard. "All is ready for our departure, Master Vercel." The heavy hood shifts as Vercel turns towards you. "And you concur, Ranger?" "Yes," you snarl. Vercel pauses. "But you remain unsatisfied." Your rage is close to its boiling point. You're still upset that the wizard denied aid to protect everyone in the caravan. You mourn the useless death and destruction caused by his callous attitude and cowardice. You level your finger at him accusingly. "You could have sent those guards with me. We could have saved a life." Vercel waves your words off. "I told you, Ranger, the safety of myself and the wagon are paramount. Anything else is secondary." "Unacceptable." The word tumbles out of your mouth before you can stop it. "I have been charged with protecting this caravan, and I expect you to allow me to do my job." A collective gasp goes up from the assembled guards and laborers. Clearly, no one else would dare to address Vercel in this manner. But you dare. Ranger Kobek has warned you countless times about losing your temper, but it feels good to finally give your anger its voice. Vercel turns to face you. There is still no evidence of a face under that deep hood, merely an unsettling pool of darkness under the morning sun. "No one defies me, Ranger." You sneer. "There is a first time for everything, Vercel. I am not some slave you have purchased. I am a free man." You rest the black bow on the ground and lean on its curved shaft. Jeez, God, I am not surprised that, okay, life decreases by 3 and morale decreases by 4. Morale decreases by 4? Good grief. Okay, well, let's see what he does. I mean, obviously we're about to get hurt, but the fact that morale just dropped by 4 points, and that's just a massive drop from any of the stories I've watched. That are read, I should say. For an uncomfortably long time, Vercel does not move. You're not sure what he's thinking. There is a scream to your left. "No, you can't!" It's the elven girl from the central wagons. She is pressed up against the bars that cover the window of her wagon, and she seems to be shouting at Vercel. Suddenly, you realize why. Vercel was casting some sort of spell. He raises his hands, and a nebulous field of black energy spreads between them. He flicks his wrist, and the pulsating black mass flies directly at you. You try to dodge, but it's too late. The darkness wraps around you, and you find yourself blinded. You hear another scream, this time muffled, perhaps by the darkness around you. You feel multiple hands seize your arms and legs. A burly arm wraps around your throat from behind, squeezing you in a choking grip. You are helpless. The darkness fades, seeming to melt back into daylight. Several guards of the caravan are holding you now as Russell stands in front of you. Behind him, Grimbold is limping out of his wagon with a thin metal circlet in his hands. It is a slave collar. As Grimbold positions the metal around your neck, Russell says impassively, "You have brought this on yourself, Ranger." The chokehold around your throat prevents you from answering as Grimbold meets your eyes with an apologetic expression. Russell says, "I was hoping that you would be professional and that the collar would not be necessary. Now your will shall be my will, and your loyalty will be assured in all things." Grimbold pauses and looks up at the wizard before fastening the cold metal hoop. "Master, surely the Council of the Grove will object." Russell strides closer and stares down at you. "They might. However, by the time word reaches them, I will have concluded my business in Ring City, and we will be gone." Russell points a single finger. There is a flare of light, and the slave collar clamps shut around your throat. A moment later, the guards release you. "Stand," Russell says, and you find yourself unable to resist the order. He shakes with silent laughter. "Do you know why your kind is dying off, Ranger?" You grit your teeth in rage as you will yourself to draw your swords. You cannot. "Because you are a contradiction," Russell continues. "You fancy yourself as wild and free as the wilderness you worship. Yet by some accident of ancient history, you are bound to protect the kingdom and uphold your oaths." He waved his gloved hand at you dismissively. "Absurd. The New World has no love of contradictions. Be one thing or another. You cannot be both." "This is treason," you shout. Your fingers stray to the thin circlet of metal around your neck. Your mind clears enough to speak freely. "I am a free citizen of Valtanar," you seethe. "You have no right to do this to me." You pull hard at the metal band, but a surge of power flows from the band and numbs your arms. Russell turns away. His answer drifts back over his shoulder as he glides back towards his wagon. "I have the power, and so I claim the right. Let this be your first lesson, Ranger. Those that have the power make the rules." Wow. I see why his morale got shot into the negative. I don't even know why I didn't consider that as I guess because I understood the Ranger to be on loan to him, like to his caravan as a free agent. I didn't even consider the risk that he would just put a collar on him. I did think that the collars probably had a magical component to them, but I still just didn't even consider. I just didn't see this coming. Russell climbs back into his wagon, leaving you glaring at the door as it closes behind him. "Don't bother, Ranger," Grimbold whispers behind you. "You can't raise a hand against him with that thing around your neck." You whirl and angrily face the dwarf. "Did you make these for him too?" He shakes his head. No, they are forged in the city of Brass, deep within the Southlands. The nomads of the sands raid each other's tribes constantly. They use them to keep their captured slaves and prisoners in line as they travel. Your fingers run over the metal circlet as Grimbold continues. You can't remove it yourself. You can't get too far away from Master unless he allows it, and you can't raise your hand against him. Our bands, he continues, sliding a thumb under the circlet around his own neck, are bound to Master Vercel. He is marked as their owner, and anyone wearing one must follow his commands. You will feel an overwhelming compulsion to do so. Oh, and even if you follow his orders, he can cause you pain if he wishes. He has inflicted pain on me more than once as punishment for what he deems disrespect or disloyalty. Is that why the guards act so strangely? You ask. Grimbold nods. Aye. He insists that anyone who is to remain in his company be bound. The guards, the laborers. He shakes his head. Everyone. Master Vercel is the most fearful individual I have encountered. He surrounds himself with layer upon layer of protection. The collars are just one of many. How do I get it off? You ask as your fingers curl around the metal. The dwarf shakes his head and laughs. I've been puzzling at that for some time myself, and I have no answer. You have lost hope of freedom? You ask, glaring at him. Grimbold shrugs. I have the faint hope of Master's promise. He told me that if I proved loyal, he would release me. Perhaps if he learns to trust you, he will release you as well. Your hope stands upon the word of a slaver, you say, gritting your teeth. Master is not kind, but I do not think him a liar, says Grimbold. Shaking your head, you glance around at the wagons. That's why you so willingly lend him your considerable engineering prowess? The dwarf nods. I have strived to prove myself valuable. Perhaps your usefulness only ensures your bondage. You point at the circlet around his own neck. For all you have done for him, he has yet to make good on his promise. Grimbold looks at the double wagons and then glances back at you. He has hinted he'll do so after we reach Ring City, he says. And he might do the same for you. After this, we may not matter to him. The guards have resumed their places on the wagons, and the Wahashas are stamping at the ground. You were anxious to take this trip, anxious to prove yourself to the masters of the Grove. Yet even the druids of the Grove could not have foreseen this, nor wished such an indignity upon one of their own. Nevertheless, they would expect you to adapt and complete your mission. You will prove yourself, and sooner or later, you will have your freedom again. The road through the foothills is sparsely traveled. Tall grass and shrubs encroach the path. The road through the foothills is sparsely traveled. Tall grass and shrubs encroach the path from both sides as the wilderness seeks to heal this scar from her body. Praise to the twins, you chant. Hey, what was that, Ranger? Asked a guard. He is walking along the caravan, perhaps 10 meters away. Your name? You ask. He scowls. Jaren, he says. I've already told you twice. Having never been good with human names, you're not surprised you have forgotten. To your question, Jaren, you say, hoping it will sink in if you add emphasis. I said, praise to the twins. Your religion, Jaren says, as he smiles and jogs up closer. And what are you praying to your gods for? Not praying, giving praise, taking a moment to give gratitude, you say. For what? He asks. For victory. Where the Mondravians once thrived, now the twins hold sway, you say. The twins are patient. They retreat from the farmer's plow and the bricklayer's road, but the twins always wait to take back the land that belongs to them. A lot of people died. The voice belongs to the female guard. She's on the driver's deck of the wagon, ambling next to you. You've discreetly inquired and since learned her name to be Mirabelle. It's not mysterious that you have no trouble remembering her name. Her emerald green eyes are set on you intently. She holds the reins tightly, her knuckles white. The fall of the Mondravens was a bloody affair. What do your savage gods care about that? Life and death are part of the circle, you say. Without death, there is no life. Mirabelle sneers. If only you could have comforted the Mondravian women and children with such wisdom as they were put to the sword. Right, says Jaren. If you hate people so much, why do you serve the Storm Throne? The contradiction Vercel spoke of, you think. I do not hate people, you say. We are all children of the twins. People are not lesser. Yet no better either, says Mirabelle. Her gaze is challenging. No better than a mangy coyote or the termites housed in a rotting log? You don't answer. There is no point. They cannot understand. Really? Says Jaren after some seconds of your silence. You think people are no better than a log? When again you don't answer, he laughs. Gods, to think you're the one sent to protect us. I hope we don't have to cut through any holy logs to clear the way for our wagons. You may sooner kill us all. Do not speak of absurdities, or I will teach you respect, you say. Perhaps something in your tone wipes the smile off Jaren's face. You're not surprised. Take no offense at my jest, he says. You believe what you want. He pulls the hem of his shirt down to reveal his slave collar. Even Master Vercel can't take that away from us. You watch him carefully for a moment. There is sincerity in his face. You nod. With the tension gone, Jaren smiles. So, he drawls out, you ever plowed the field of one of those wood fairies? Mirabelle chuckles from the wagon. Gods, Jaren, you're going to get an arrow in your throat, she says as she puts her hand to her own tanned neck protectively. And I think what you mean are wood nymphs, not fairies. Fairies are too small for the activity you're inquiring about. You know the forest creatures, you say, peering up at Mirabelle. The tinge of anger in her eyes melts away as she smiles almost shyly. Only tales from my grandmama when I was the size of a fairy myself. Right, Jaren says with a grin. Nymphs, that's what I meant. I heard they're beautiful and hate to wear clothes. My kind of women. Mirabelle laughs again. Nymphs are dangerous, Jaren. If you see a naked woman in the forest, you best leave her be. Oh, certainly. I can try to heed your wisdom, Jaren laughs. And tell you what, you strip naked as the day you were born and run about in the forest to test me? Need to build up my willpower against those dangerous nymphs. Mirabelle rolls her eyes and then looks pointedly at you. You see the burden I carry, Ranger? The only woman in this caravan of running pigs. It would be a shame if I were to accidentally run one over with my wagon. Jaren grins at you. Our ranger understands. After spending a month in the forest by himself, probably every tree knot and gopher hole is a temptation. You shake your head. I am saving my seed for one that is worthy. Saving your seed? Jaren's eyes widen. You've never... he stammers. Never? You shake your head again, a little surprised at Jaren's reaction to your virginity. Well, I think that's sweet, says Mirabelle. A man with standards. She eyes Jaren for a moment and then smiles at you. Tell me, Ranger, what sort of woman would be worthy? She asks, and then quickly adds, I have more than a few friends, both comely and respectable. A woman who consecrates her mind and body to the twins, you say. Mirabelle is silent, as though waiting for you to go on. Finally, she prompts, and that is all that is required of her to be worthy? That is a great deal, you say. To be consecrated, she must be of pure intention, and the twins must accept her. Personally, I like redheads, says Jaren, winking up at Mirabelle on the wagon deck above. That alone is enough for a woman to be worthy to me. Although with the right face and bottom, any hair color will do. Mirabelle ignores Jaren and keeps her attention on you. Please continue. How does one become consecrated? Okay, Mirabelle sounds like she's trying to submit an application. She sounds a little more than appropriately curious about this. It's not every day that someone asks to hear of the sacred rites. Maybe speaking to non-believers is worthwhile. You continue. A woman would pray to the twins. Tradition says that she would pray during her menses while wading in a stream or river, at least a day's journey from significant human settlements. If the twins find her intention pure, she will be blessed that night with the musk of the twins. With this scent upon her, the children of the twins shall provide her with nourishment for 2 weeks. Wait, children of the twins? Says Mirabelle. Like bears and birds bring her fish and berries or whatnot? You nod. The specific animals and what they bring will vary between regions, but yes, you have the gist of it. Mirabelle narrows her eyes. You jest. You want to play us as fools? I don't think our ranger here is much for jokes, says Jaren dryly. Mirabelle looks at you carefully for a second. Perhaps not seeing any humor in your expression, she shrugs. Very well. After our lucky maiden is fattened up by the forest animals, what's next? After 2 weeks, as she draws close to her most fertile, a man will come, you say. He will be a follower of the twins, a man perhaps known to her, or a stranger drawn to her by the scent of her sacred musk. Now it's getting good, says Jaren, rubbing his hands together. The two of them pray to the twins for their seed to join and pledge their child to the twins, you say. And then, prompts Mirabelle after a second of silence. And then the man mounts her and gives her his worthy seed, you say. Well, I just get them drunk, says Jaren. God, more than drunk. Passed out is more like it. Mirabelle scowls at Jaren. You should be put in the stocks. Mirabelle gives you a long-suffering look. Please continue. After his sanctified seed takes root in the woman's womb, she shall go about her business as she sees fit. But as her time draws near, she shall return to the wilderness alone to birth her blessed child. Alone? Asks Mirabelle. I cannot imagine simply walking into the forest alone to birth a child. The twins bless the birth. Although her labor will be painful, she will be safe. Far safer than in the filthy hands of a town midwife. Wait, go back to the mounting part. Is it from behind? Asks Jaren as he pantomimes the act. I'm guessing that's how the twins will want it. Of course, you say. How else? Plenty of options, says Jaren with his gap-toothed grin. Particularly when first getting to know each other. Anyhow, I love to hear the particulars. Very well, you say. As I have been told, usually the woman bends over and... Do not indulge, Jaren, says Mirabelle, interrupting you. He asks such specific questions for his own pleasure, not genuine inquiry. You shrug. I am happy to answer any questions of our rituals. The union is among our most sacred of acts, second only to birth. What happens to children born in this way? Asks Mirabelle. Do they live in the wilderness? Sometimes, you say. Most of our greatest druids were conceived and born in this way. Even those children of the twins who were raised in what you call civilization usually end up returning to the wild. Those who do not, perhaps those enslaved within cities, are forever tormented by the call of the wilderness. What of the mother and the father? Asks Mirabelle as she leans over the wagon. My, now who's asking all the specific questions? Mirabelle, are you thinking of signing up? Asks Jaren, leering up at her. Want to know your fate after you take the seed of this sand gob? His voice trails off as he quickly looks away from you and clears his throat. Go ahead and finish your thought, you say, allowing the hint of threat into your voice. Just, none of my business, I suppose, he mutters. All this talk of bending over has reminded me I best get back to guarding the rear. He gives Mirabelle one last glance before he turns and stalks back toward the end of the caravan. Sand goblin, you say, nodding up at Mirabelle. That's what he was going to call me, wasn't it? Yet he didn't, says Mirabelle, shaking her head. Good thing, I wager. She fastens her intense green eyes on you and smiles sadly. Plenty of us northern weeds can't see past the skin of a man. Imagine you Southlanders don't trust us much either. Trust takes time, you say, particularly in times of strife. Her sad smile turns to mischief. So maybe don't kill Jaren just yet. He's not much to look at, and he's even worse to listen to. But when he has a sword in his hand, he's brave enough. Not yet, you say, trying to smile back at her in what you hope is a playful manner. And if you would like to learn more of our sacred rite of union, I would be happy to tell you. As I said, I have never participated, but I have borne witness. You were a witness? She whispers as her face flushes crimson. You nod, smiling up at her wistfully. It was beautiful. She turns redder still and turns forward in her seat, as though suddenly needing to pay careful attention to controlling the Wahashas. Should you not be off? Well, I don't want to keep you from your duty of protecting the caravan. Yes, that is my duty, you say. Best I scout ahead. You quicken your pace, beginning to leave her behind. You turn back. I enjoyed speaking with you. Yes, she says immediately. She smiles back, but her lower lip trembles slightly. She quickly turns her attention straight ahead. Was she being truthful? You wonder. Did she really enjoy speaking to you with her sudden change in behavior? People are so strange. More reason to spend most of your time away from the caravan when you travel. Life increases too. Favor increases too. And with that, I think that's an excellent place to stop. That story was getting rough. It's getting long as well, and I'm hitting the checkpoint mark. I'm in a position where I need to stretch and move. My body is getting really stiff, and I'm not sure how long this recording is going to be. You'll see, but I feel like this is a really good sample for what the Rangers choice was going to offer us. We get to know, if we proceed on here, we'll get to know more about Rochelle and the Mirabelle's interest, what's going on with the elf that he has. We can see potentially how the Ranger sets himself free of his collar, and just what are their goals in Ring City. So yeah, if you like this one, give it a like. Let me know in the comments which choices you would have made differently from the choices that I made, and why, or if you agree with my choices, let me know. I really hope that you enjoyed the reading up to this point. And if you're interested in this type of reading, please continue to check back in on the channel to see what other stories I dive into. I did say that next week, or next video, not necessarily next week, I did say that the next video was going to be Demon's Choice, and considering how this one ended, is starting to get kind of mature there. Maybe that will lead us into the mood for Demon's Choice. So I guess with that segue, I don't feel so awkward sticking to my word and reading Demon's Choice next week. After Demon's Choice, I'm wondering if maybe I'll read the beginning of the Frozen post-apocalyptic story that I thought was pretty interesting. And I think maybe I'll dip into reading that. And then, if any of the other stories that I've read have piqued up interest, then maybe I'll return to them. I'm always open to return to any of these stories, of course. But I'm also always looking forward to reading something new and seeing what else this app or any other sources of stories might have to offer. Also in the future, once I get comfortable with this channel and just with what I'm doing with this channel, I do hope to maybe read some of my own work. I do have some short stories that I might read myself, but maybe with those I try to get some art done or search some art to have some fitting visuals to place up on the screen while I'm reading. I don't know. I'll just sort through that. If anyone has suggestions, feel free to offer them. Any advice. That being said, I really appreciate you hanging out with me and reading this story with me, if you're indeed still here. And until next time, sleep well.